Hello, I'm Bruce Weir, and I'm going to talk to you for a few moments about my involvement in the Simpson case. First of all, I need to share my screen. There we go. So I was called upon by the prosecution to help with the presentation of evidence from mixtures. These are stains taken from the Bronco and from the glove. The prosecution wished to present such evidence, but to do so without giving any numerical strength to the matching that was found. The defense said that wasn't appropriate because the jury might then believe that mixtures had the same kind of numbers, the same numerical strength that single source stains have, and that, and moreover, appropriate numbers could be given for mixtures by random and not excluded calculations. And that was following on from the first NRC report. The prosecution countered that RMNE numbers do not convey the strength of the evidence, and they preferred the method offered by Ian Evatt and his colleagues a few years earlier in a 1991 paper. So to resolve the issue, the court held an admissibility hearing out of the presence of the jury to discuss whether the mixtures could be presented and what kind of numbers would go along with those. So what is the issue? The Evatt paper was very forthright, very nice paper with some examples, very forthright in showing the power of likelihood ratios in this context. And their methods took into account the number of contributors and the genotypes of the hypothesized contributors under alternative hypothesis. That was 1991. The following year, the first NRC report came out, and that report did not use Evatt's logic. And in fact, they said following that, if a suspect's pattern is found within the mixed pattern, the appropriate frequency to assign such a match is the sum of the frequencies of all the genotypes that are contained within, i.e. are a subset of the mixed pattern. Quite different from what Evatt had shown. Interesting, a few years later, 1996, the second NRC report said that calculation, the first NRC value, is hard to justify because it does not make use of some of the information available, namely the genotype of the suspect. The correct procedure, we believe, was described by Evatt et al. 1991. So the court held an admissibility hearing, and during that, the defense attorney, Bill Thompson, complained about Dr. Weir's tendency to slip into the language of likelihood ratios. We certainly object to any such testimony, he said. At the end of the hearing, Judge Ito said, I find that the analysis offered by Dr. Weir is the more accurate and closest to what the evidence truly presents. So the evidence was declared to be admissible, and the prosecution was free to choose however they wished to present it. During the trial, I gave direct testimony for the prosecution, and then under cross, defense attorney Peter Neufeld stood next to me and said, what I would like you to calculate is the percentage of the population that cannot be excluded as contributing to this mixture, okay? That's a very different question than the question that you answered before to the jury, but it is a question I would like you to answer. We had a fairly heated exchange about that, Mr. Neufeld and I, and it resulted in a sidebar between the judge and the attorneys on both sides, and subsequently I went ahead and did what the defense wanted. Not happily, but I did it. I don't think Mr. Neufeld was happy either, and I'm not sure the prosecution was all that pleased anyway. Newspaper reporters were present, and the Los Angeles Times was less than kind. They said my testimony was dry as sand and about as digestible. So what's happened about mixtures after the Simpson trial? Was the first real case involving DNA mixtures. So we've heard about the 1996 NRC report, and that you would think would be the end of it, but of course it wasn't. In 2006, one of the IFSG commissions said, in addition, an argument might be put forward that courts are unwilling to accept the likelihood ratio method. Whereas we recognize that there are restrictions placed on scientists by legal systems, we recommend that the scientist should always prepare his or her evidence using the likelihood ratio method wherever possible. We accept that the court may not wish to hear the evidence presented in this way, but this does not preclude it from being present on the case file. 2 years later again, another commission said, with any DNA profile, if dropout and or drop-in are possible, and this includes partial DNA profiles, it is not possible to think only in terms of a match or non-match. In other words, random man not excluded. The various possibilities can only be properly evaluated in probabilistic terms by means of the likelihood ratio principles. Very clear, and a statement with which I'm in full agreement. So where are we currently? Some US laboratories prefer still to use random man not excluded, or the equivalent combined probability of inclusion for mixtures, in spite of the NRC second report and several publications. This is changing, though, and changing quite quickly with the growing use of probabilistic genotyping software packages like StarMix and TrueAllele. Another package has recently become available as part of the PopStats suite of calculations. The semi-continuous mixture option also gives answers in terms of likelihood ratios. That was designed for old cases where peak height and other information may not be available, only the called genotypes. And that paper, that work is described in a paper currently on FSI reports. There are many other packages, of course, that are very good. Certainly Euroformix, like LTD and Mixkin. And all these and others produce likelihood ratios for mixtures. So what are my final thoughts? Likelihood ratios are necessary for mixture interpretation, and I believe all types of DNA evidence and indeed other evidence. They've been in use for a long time, of course. Certainly in parentage disputes, we see them under the name of paternity index. Random man not excluded appears to be a simpler calculation, certainly is simple to perform, and fairly easy to explain to someone. Not as easy to explain what the relevance of that number is, though, for a particular case. The RMNE does not convey the strength of the evidence. Another point that emerges is very difficult to introduce new calculation methods in our field, introduce them to the forensic science community, for example. In 1995, no US lab was interpreting mixtures with likelihood ratios. And of course, even more difficult to introduce them into a courtroom. Probabilistic genotyping methods have been a great benefit to mixture interpretation, but nobody would claim that they were simple. Certainly not simple to calculate and not particularly easy to present the true meaning of the values. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for many colleagues who have helped me along the way, including, of course, John Buckleton from ESR. So thanks again.